Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and I'm filming this for my birthday. All right, this is my birthday present to me because most of you do not like my comic book market update, so I haven't really done one in a while, but I'm scheduling this for the release on my 48th birthday. God help us all, I'm getting old. I'm almost to 50 years old, so today is my 48th birthday. And I gotta give, before I start out talking about recent sales for vintage CGC and modern Star Wars comic books, all CGC graded, I gotta say thank you to a buddy of mine. He's also a Patreon, but more importantly, he's a friend of mine. His name is Jason, and he sent me this gift that hopefully will come through in the reflections, but this is a CGC 9.4 for Amazing Spider-Man number 37. This is from 1966. And this is the first appearance of Norman Osborn in comic books. Obviously, if you know Spider-Man comic books, Norman Osborn, he's the Green Goblin. This is the first time that he appears as Norman Osborn, his kind of alternate identity. And, Jason is a high-end comic book collector. He sent this to me as a gift. And this is one of the highest graded out there. It's a CGC 9.4 with off-white to white pages from 1966. And there's not many of them on the census in this high or higher of a grade. And it pairs really nicely with my ASM that has, I can't remember what number it is, 13, the first appearance of Green Goblin. So I've got the first appearance of Green Goblin, and now I've got the first appearance of Norman Osborn, his kind of real ID, his real person identity. So it was a very, very generous gift from Jason, and I can't thank him enough for it. I've just been enjoying staring at it, and just way too kind of a gift. Really, really nice of you, Jason. So thanks for that. It was just kind of jaw-dropping when I got that in the mail. Today's video, I'm just going to cover some recent sales for both vintage and modern Star Wars comics graded by CGC. I haven't done one of these updates in a while, but I wanted to at least give you an idea of where prices are. As you'd expect, the prices are down from where they were this time last year, and I don't know if we'll see any kind of uptick anytime soon. But I did at least want to kind of give you an idea of what prices are like over the last few months for various key issue comics. Star Wars #1, the book that started it all. This was a freshly graded CGC 9.6 with white pages, and that one sold on 19 bids for $850. Not long ago, it was probably double that price. So Star Wars #1, like all comic books to a certain extent, but I feel like especially with Star Wars books, now's a pretty good time. I think I timed a lot of my big purchases last year about a year too early. It seems like this year there's going to be a lot of good deals in the market. And Star Wars #1, this one was a 9.8 with white pages that sold in an auction for $28.02. That's about the going rate. Anywhere from about $2,800 to $3,200 is about where a 9.8 with white pages for Star Wars #1 is going for right now. And that's obviously down from this time last year. Here was another 9.8 with white pages. That one sold in a buy it now for $3,000. So, ideally, if you can get a really clean copy without any bleed through on the logo, we've talked about that in many past videos from a while ago. The Star Wars logo can get some bleed through where you get some kind of red ink showing through it. But both of these were very clean copies, both freshly graded. $28.02 and $3,000 are the two most recent sales that I would aim for if you're looking for a 9.8. A 9.6 with white pages, it's hard to believe that it's dropped all the way down to $850, but that's what it sold for in an auction. I paid closer to $4,000 for my 9.8 with white pages, so that was not a good investment. A lot of my books that I've bought, and I'll kind of talk about those as we go through these, it's incredible how much they've gone down in price. Here is a 9.6 with white pages for Star Wars #2. This is the first interior comic book appearance for Han Solo, Chewbacca, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. So it's an important book as well. That one sold for $249.50. It's crazy how cheap that is relative to where this one was, but that's what it sold for. This was a recent sale that a buddy of mine picked up, and I was really tempted, to be honest with you. I really wanted to buy this. I sent this out to my Patreons. This is a newsstand edition for Star Wars number 35. I've got 2 of these in a 9.8 with white pages for the direct edition, but there have been only 6 sales total on Go Collect's database for a newsstand for this book. It just never shows up. Very impossible to find this book. When I say 6 sales total, I'm not talking about in the last 30 days or 90 days. I'm talking about period. Dating back to whenever Go Collect started their tracking, there's been only 6 newsstands that have sold. And the fair market value was about $425. This was listed for $450. I think my buddy ended up getting it for about $400 all in. So this is the first face-to-face meeting of Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader in comic books. And it's a really cool cover that shows the Dark Lord's gambit. He's like playing chess with the main heroes. And I love this book. I just think it's one of those great covers that I think would really, be desirable long term. So I've got 2 in a 9.8 direct edition, but this newsstand showed up and I was like, oh, I wanted to buy it so bad. But one of my buddies ended up getting it after I sent it out in a Patreon buy it now alert. So congrats to him on that. Star Wars number 39 in a direct edition. This is the first book for the adaptation of The Empire Strikes Back. This one sold for $200. Very good price there. I think I paid like $350 for mine. So that's really come back down to earth a lot. You can probably find them even cheaper. This is a 9.8 with off-white to white pages. So not white pages, but that one sold for a little bit less at $175 for Star Wars number 39. Star Wars number 42, likewise, has really dropped in price. This is obviously the first comic book appearance for Boba Fett and Yoda in U.S. Comics. There was a weekly over in the UK that came out before this book, date-wise. But in terms of standard-size comics, this is the first appearance of Yoda and Boba Fett. And a 9.6 with white pages sold in a buy it now for $500. This 9.8 with white pages, the direct edition, sold for $875. I think I paid $1,600, somewhere in that ballpark, for my 9.8 with white pages. So it's basically been cut in half. This was a 9.8 newsstand for Star Wars number 42. That one sold at an auction for $1,300. I've seen a little bit less here and there, but anywhere from $1,100 to about $1,300 is about right for a newsstand for Star Wars number 42. This book was closer to $5,000 a few years back when the Book of Boba Fett was out there. So that just shows you how much a lot of these key issues have fallen. Here is a 9.8 newsstand for Star Wars number 68. This is the first appearance of the planet Mandalore, the first kind of comic book appearance of Mandalorians. And this was a newsstand, and it sold for $14.99, which I would argue is a really good deal. About a year and a half ago, this was more like $2,500 to $2,800. So that one also has come down in price quite a bit. Here is Star Wars Return of the Jedi number 1. This is obviously the adaptation of Return of the Jedi. This is a direct edition, very cheap book to find right now. You can probably get it for even less than this price, which was $125 plus $19 shipping. I think in an auction, it probably goes closer to $100, if not even slightly below that. So I did find one other buy it now that was around the same price of $125. So maybe I'm being aggressive, but when at all possible, try to wait for auctions right now, because auctions, a lot of these key issue books are going for cheap. Here is Star Wars Return of the Jedi number 4. And this one was signed by Mark Hamill. This was a direct edition. I bid on a newsstand edition for Star Wars number 1, I believe. I'm going on memory here. I think I bid on a newsstand signed by Mark Hamill last year. And I think I bid $1,100 or $1,200, and it sold for $1,300. This was a Star Wars number 4 direct edition, and that still sold for $900. It seems like Mark Hamill's signature on any vintage or even modern book That's a 9.8 signature series. You're going to be paying 500 plus. It's even more than that usually. He's just one of those guys that does not sign a lot of items, and his signature is very valuable. His, Carrie Fisher's, and Harrison Ford's, especially Harrison Ford's, you're going to be paying big boy money, big time money on a 9.8 signature series CGC book. But Mark Hamill's signature on this book went for $900. I've got a few other autographs towards the end of this video on some other modern books, so we'll take a look at those. Here's Heir to the Empire #1, obviously the first comic book appearance of Mara Jade, Jarrus Seaboth, and Grand Admiral Thrawn. This was a newsstand, and it sold for $800 bucks. I bought in an auction. I paid for this book last year. I paid $1,100. I think it might have been closer to $1,000. I can't remember. I vaguely feel like it was closer to $1,000 after taxes and shipping and everything. It was pretty much spot on. I think slightly over $1,000 if I had to guess. Maybe $1,100, but I can't remember exactly. But that just shows you how much, even from last year, how much it's come down. This one sold, very recently, less than a year, but from when I bought mine, and it sold at $800. So it's just been proven that all these big books have really come back down, even from when I bought them last year. Clone Wars #1, obviously the first appearance of Ahsoka and Captain Rex in comics. This was a direct edition, sold for $950. I paid $1,600 for mine. So that book has also really come back down to earth. Here's another one. This one's sold in a buy it now for $995. So, $900 to $1,000 right now should be able to get you a Clone Wars #1 in a 9.8 with white pages. Here was an interesting sale. I really like this one. I was tempted on this one. Luckily, I'm hands off. I try to send it to my Patreon supporters and let them go after this stuff, but this is a very tough to find newsstand edition for KOTOR #42. Knights of the Old Republic #42. Newsstand edition. Very tough to find 2000s era newsstands. This is from 2009. I mean, the newsstands are almost non-existent by now. And this was the origin of Revan in comics. I've got a direct edition for this book, but this one sold in an auction for $565. That's about, honestly, that's probably pretty close to what I paid for this book during the height of the comic book market in a direct edition. And this one was a newsstand. So great deal on that book. I feel like that's a really tough book to find in a newsstand. Kanan #6. This is obviously the first full appearance of the Rebels team. I think I paid $600 for this book. $600. This one is now going for $125, probably even closer to $100 now. So just has been proven that those modern Star Wars books have just dropped like a rock in value. And I definitely bought this book at the wrong time. So it's dropped by about 80% from where I bought it. So that one was a dog. And you're going to have a few of these occasionally. All right. If you're in the comic game, especially if you're in the modern comic book game, even for Star Wars key issue books like this, there's just so many of them out there that it's been proven that you can't overpay for even some of these what are quote unquote key issue books. $125, I would argue, even in a auction, you could probably get this book for closer to $100 now. So that was not a good buy by me. Here was an interesting one. This one was a 9.8 signature series, Star Wars The Force Awakens. And this one sold for $709, and it had a bunch of autographs. It had Adam Driver, Mark Dodson, a lot of these names I've never heard of, Tom Kane, Tim Rose, Mike Quinn, obviously we know those names, Peter Mayhew, Andy Serkis. I don't know who some of these other folks are, but lots of big names signed this one. It's not like having Carrie Fisher or Mark Hamill or like Harrison Ford signing this book, but a pretty cool book nonetheless, and it still sold for $709. Lots of autographs on that one. Next up, the High Republic. Talk about a universe that has been basically rejected by Star Wars fans, is the High Republic universe. And this, the Acolyte did not do well. It was not very well received. And as a result, a lot of the High Republic comics have dropped like a rock. This book used to go in a 9.8 with white pages. This book used to go for $600 plus. And now the High Republic #1 Virgin Edition. This is an homage to Clone Wars #1, and this in a 9.8 is now selling in an auction for $147.50. Absolutely massive drop from where this book was a couple years ago. Here's one I didn't buy this one, but I did buy this particular cover. I love this cover. I love it. I couldn't resist it. I think I paid $300 or $325, somewhere in that ballpark for it. I've seen it go for less. But it's not very. This one has a pretty low population report, but it's got kind of a faux vintage, cover to it, and it shows Vader holding the dead body of Padme Amidala after the funeral. So it's almost like an alternate universe where Vader, obviously he learns about the death of Padme, and then he goes and slaughters everybody at the funeral, including the shock troopers guarding her body, I guess. But this is Darth Vader #1 from 2017. This is actually the first appearance of Black Chrysanthemum in comics, I believe. But this is the harder to find Brooks variant cover. And it's a 9.8 with white pages. I think I paid about $300, $325, somewhere in that ballpark for it. This one sold for $400. So it is a desirable book. And even though it's a modern book, you might be able to get it for cheaper than $300 in an auction. They just don't show up very often. I know that there was one on Heritage that sold along with a bunch of big time books, like high-end books. And it went for nothing. I mean, it went for like $175. It just was ignored because of all the other big books that were going on at the same time. So there are deals to be had for this particular book out there if you're, patient and really look all over the place for it. Maybe Comic Link or Heritage, one of these will pop up and you can, get it underneath the radar. But this one did sell for whatever it's worth at $400. I think I paid $325 for mine. But it's a great cover. It really is an awesome cover. Some autographs, I think, to finish things off. A lot of these were from One Stop Comic Shop. Daniel over there always has auctions almost every single week on usually modern books, but signed books that are really nice. This one is signed by Nika Futterman, who obviously voiced Asajj Ventress in the Clone Wars cartoon. This is the JTC John Tyler Christopher action figure variant cover for Star Wars #41 from 2024. Love this cover. I keep meaning to bid on one of these, but I'm just trying not to spend any money. And this book sold for $111.50. He also, I got another one from him right here. This one I really liked as well. I didn't see this one. I just found it after the fact. This is Thrawn Alliances #1, signed by Hayden Christensen, as well as Lars Mikkelsen. Lars obviously portrayed Thrawn, not only his voice in the cartoons, but his likeness was Thrawn in the Ahsoka series. And obviously Hayden Christensen, we all know who he is. But this one was signed by both of them, and it's a great cover. This is an adaptation of the novel by Timothy Zahn. It's a great book, great book. I've read it a few times. And this cover, obviously, this variant edition cover is so hot. It's really nice. That one sold for $582. Big time number on that one. Another one from Thrawn Alliances. This is Thrawn Alliances #1. This is the Clark variant cover. This one is also signed by Timothy Zahn as well as Lars Mikkelsen. That one sold for $300. That's a really great cover as well. And then finally from One Stop Comic Shop was this Rosario Dawson signed Ahsoka #1 from 2024. This series just started this past fall, and it is an adaptation of the first season of Ahsoka. This is my favorite cover, and obviously signed by Rosario Dawson. Can't beat that. That one sold for $315. But check out One Stop Comic Shop, Daniel. I know I talk about him a lot, but he's got some really great books. It's so tempting to bid on some of these, but I'm really trying hard to not spend any money for as long as possible. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you as always for watching. Don't forget to leave me a like if you enjoyed the video, and I'll be back soon.